And I came up with pretty much everything I just said this morning as I lay in bed for an hour. I was like writing all this stuff down feverishly. I just like all the actual breakthroughs and like advancements. A lot of it I came up with this morning. So I'll have like days where I'm like, oh, we could do that. Oh, we could do that. I'm like solving all this stuff. It's pretty cool. Like I just come up with solutions. Usually it's like when I'm trying to go to sleep or waking up. I'm just laying in bed thinking about all my projects and visualizing. I'm like seeing it all, just going through all the plans. I'm like, how could I improve that? How could I improve that? And I'm like coming up with all kinds of cool ideas and like testing them in my mind. And it's great. But I'm tired because I only slept for 5 hours last night. I got woken up by the baby, and then after I got woken up, I didn't fall back asleep, and I started getting all these ideas for my projects, and that kind of woke me up completely. My mind was in full gear, so I didn't get enough sleep. And then 2 nights ago, I didn't sleep at all. And that was because I was trying to go to bed early, and I went to bed 2 hours early, and then I was laying in bed for like 3 hours, unable to sleep because I tried to go to bed way before I'm used to. And then at that point, I'm like, whatever. I'm just gonna get up. I've been laying here 3 hours without sleeping. I give up. So I gave up and I got up and just went to work. And what I worked on actually, this is an interesting story. I worked on, so I built Adam, or I'm building a robot named Adam, a robot named Abel. I'm not going to build a Cain because that's the evil brother in the Bible. And then there's Eve. So I built a 3D model for Eve, and I guess I could show it. Um, I had to build a 3D model of a dress for Eve in order to be able to show Eve on like YouTube or whatever. Because like it's a female body, otherwise it has to be clothed so that nobody will like lust or whatever. So this is the model. I could give you guys a little. I did this all like over a couple days. I started out using Make Human. Make Human is really cool. Uh, Make Human. So Make Human lets you sculpt characters. A lot of people make some ugly characters because it's really comes down to your artistic ability. You can change all kinds of sliders to make any type of base mesh you want, just with sliders. And so you can make all kinds of characters with it. But then the thing is, after that, you export the character, and then you can um, sculpt way more on it and improve it in your own modeling software of choice. So I tried to make it. I tried to make the model pretty because I thought God would make Eve pretty. So I tried to do like idealize with a nice figure, um, kind of idealized proportions. Um, some people might think the arms are too muscular for a girl, but I don't think so because some girls, like Eve, would have been like outdoorsmen. They weren't like just sitting at computers all day, so she would be like working, like walking around, picking up stuff. Like they would be like pretty active. So the calves would be bigger too, and she's very muscular. She has muscular legs, and also I made like broad hips because I think like I made her curvy because I think that a ideal form would be pretty curvy. Like this is the mother of all living, as far as like we're all descended from her, all of us. So I thought like God would make her curvy and very attractive for Adam because, and she would look very childbearing, like so broad hips and stuff like that. Those are all signals of like motherhood, like larger breasts for milk production and stuff like that, and some of the fat for like being able to handle famines and stuff. So there would be a decent amount of fat for a woman, and also muscle to be strong. So she's like well built, tough woman, and that's kind of my ideal type, like muscular but not too muscular, and curvy but not too curvy. But she's pretty curvy. Um, you guys don't really know like how everything looks too much because I put a very modest dress on, and the modesty of the dress is important because I think this is how women should look. So you'll notice you can't tell like too much about the curves. It's kind of like black, black, black. It's kind of hidden. It's hiding the degree of curves. This doesn't show how deep the back curve is. This doesn't show how flat the stomach is. You don't really know too much. You don't know too much about how nice of a butt she has because this hides everything very well. It still does show some hourglass, but the point of a modest dress is it has to kind of hide how hourglassy it is, and hide things like thigh gap and the thighs and even the knees. I think the modest dress should hide the knees even. So this is how I think women should dress to be modest. This is what I believe. Notice it's not showing deep cleavage or anything. So you don't really know what her breasts look like. Are they more conical? Are they more bulbous? Are they nice? Are they perky? Like, we don't know. It's more hidden. You can tell she's definitely got significant volume, but she's covering it to the best of her ability to hide them so that people won't lust after her. Now, somebody could always still lust, especially since she's very curvy, but considering how curvy she is, it's very well hidden by the outfit. So it's supposed to reduce lust issues because you don't want people lusting after you if you're a woman and you're trying to be godly. So the robot would be, in that way, representing what a godly woman should dress like. Now, the muscles of the arms, I added pretty big forearms and pretty big biceps because you want to be able to fit your forearm and bicep motors for the fingers, actuation, everything. You need a lot of motors in this area to actuate the hands, the wrist, the pronation, supination of the forearm, and the bicep, tricep, of rotating of the lower arm with the upper arm, like bicep curls. So you need to have a decent amount of mass there to be able to pull that off. And for the legs, I made the legs and butt very thick and broad hips to make plenty of room in this area for powerful legs for jumping, running, that type of stuff. And also, the larger breasts is beneficial because I believe I can store water in them for the purpose of the water cooling systems. And so her esophagus can have exit points where she could actually redirect water when she's drinking into her breasts to fill them with ice water or slushy water to make really cold cooling systems for the robot. So these can be filled with cold water. So making them large not only is aesthetically pleasing, in my opinion, but it also has utility because they're not just there for looks, they're actually there to fit components or aspects, cooling reservoirs. So they're purpose built. I still don't know how good the face looks. I've messed about with it a lot. You can see it's got a lot of polygons. It's hard to work with so many polygons for me right now. ZBrush is better for that than Maya, but I felt like I did a pretty good job. I used no reference for most of it. I just built it kind of going for semi-ideal looks in Make Human, and then I thought the lips were too thin, so I made them thicker. I think like kind of thicker lips looks nice. And then the nose was a lot broader, it was like out to here, and I made it more narrow. At the end, I did use Aragorn's elf wife from Lord of the Rings as a reference, just to kind of look at her nose and lips a little bit, just to see, like, because I thought she was really pretty back in the day when I watched those movies. And I still think she's pretty. Just to kind of see what kind of proportion she has. But I didn't want to make it look like any celebrity or anything like that. So this is kind of without reference. So I don't know if you guys think this looks good or not. But I guess it doesn't have to look like absolutely gorgeous as long as it looks pretty realistic. It's supposed to look real. Now, I don't know. Okay, so like my first robot's PVC no fiberglass skeleton build was in progress. And then we switched to the PVC skeleton robot to save time by having a pre-made skeleton basically. And so we named the PVC skeleton robot Abel, and the first one was Adam. This would be the Eve robot. This would be at the very earliest the third robot I build. So it might be soon to be already doing the 3D modeling, but I did it anyways. So I'd have Adam and Eve, and then Abel, their son. I feel like if you build a female robot, a lot more people would think it's a sex bot, but none of my robots are sex bots. They're all meant to be non-sexual, just like butler slash housekeeper slash manufacturing robots. They're actually going to do manufacturing of my inventions and whatnot. So going with all male robots, especially if they're all elderly, would be ideal to take away people's perception that it might be a sex robot. But then I'm like, well, Adam and Eve and Abel, people don't picture them in elderly, like in the stories or cartoons where you see the Bible stories, you always see like a young couple in their 20s or 30s. So I didn't think it'd really fit Adam and Eve to make them like super old. It wouldn't seem like it. It wouldn't fit their name as the way people picture them in the garden. So I just made them more how they were in the garden. And I just thought, I guess like if I ever go public, like with my robots for interviews or whatever, I could just bring the males. But I could bring male or female. I guess it doesn't matter, as long as like people know it's not a sex robot. Because I really hate the idea of sex robots. I think it's immoral. You're not supposed to have sex outside of marriage, and you're not even supposed to look to lust at a woman. And I believe that counts for drawings of women or real women. You can't look to lust. And if you do, that's sin. That's adultery of the heart. That's what Jesus said. So sex with a robot is completely out of the question. If you can't even look to lust, you would be lusting if you had sex with it. So that's sexual immorality. Not to mention that could fall into like bestiality type of classification because you're having sex with a non-human even. So that's like with a beast. The machine is kind of could be categorized more so of like a beast. Although it may not be as bad as with an animal because you're harming some animal. It's still really bad. It's probably okay. I'd say that homosexual sex is the worst. Or bestiality is the worst. No, pedophilia is the worst. Bestiality is second worst. Third worst is homosexuality. Fourth worst is fornication with opposite sex. And then sex with a robot is fifth worst. So it's not as bad as all those other ones, but it's still very bad. And still sexual immorality. You'll still go to hell if you don't repent. So I definitely don't want to promote or make anyone think I'm for the idea of sex robots. But I think that as an artist, I shouldn't be removed from the possibility of creating female robots because females are attractive for an artist to draw and whatnot. Like even Leonardo da Vinci drew the Mona Lisa. Like as men, we like to appreciate what God made in the female form from an artistic perspective, but we're not to lust after females. And if you can separate aesthetically appreciating God's design and conceptualizing or drawing the ideal female form, not for the purpose of lust, if you can do that, that's great. If you can handle it in a pure manner without lusting. But if you have lack of self-control in that area, you shouldn't draw, look at, or anything the female form. You should just stay away from. You should just try to avoid it completely if you are out of control with your lust. So I can draw a 3D model of the female form without lusting, um, because I have self control and I love God and I hate lust, I hate sexual immorality, and that will all disqualify me from the kingdom of God if I were to engage in that type of behavior or lust or whatever. So I have to beat my body into submission and make it my slave so that after having preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified, like Paul said. So I cannot be lusting. So anything with lust or anything with sexual immorality involving robots is out of the question for anybody that's a true Christian. Um, but I think that making a female robot is something you can do. You just have to be very careful. And I wouldn't want other people to stumble, so I would always have the robot dressed very modestly, like this, a super modest dress. And that could be a good example that this is how women should be dressing. I could create also fashions for the female robot that could spread. If the robot got famous, people would be like, man, that's really modest and sharp, great fashion design. So I would have it be like my model for my clothing designs of modest dress for women, and tell I could preach that women should dress modestly. That dressing immodestly is sinful, it causes men to lust after you. It could lead people into sin, and so you should not be doing that if you love your brother. And so this would be a great platform to promote modest dress in women by having a famous robot that dresses very modestly as a woman. So that's an upside from a theological perspective, a biblical perspective of creating a female robot. You can have that as a platform to promote modesty. So rather than using a female robot for evil, I can use it for good. So that's where I'm at with that. Um, so that was one of the things I did while I stayed up all night, or because I couldn't sleep that night. I got this done, and I think it looks great. It's really good. So we'll see. I don't know. From this distance, the upper lip to nose might be too big of a gap. I'm not sure. I could do a lot more measurements, a lot more tweaking, but I would say she looks pretty to me. I think that's a pretty overall face. I think it looks pretty good. The arms look a little bit beastly, a little bit man-like, but that's okay. I think that if women work out and get muscular arms, I think that's fine. So I'm okay with that. And like I said, the real reason, the need for it is big forearms equals you can actually fit motors in there. And I need to be able to fit motors in there to be able to actuate the hands, some decent sized motors for the strength. So I think that's not negotiable. It needs to have fairly big forearms to be able to have strong hands. It's just necessary. I can't have some kind of super skinny, no muscle arm and expect to have a strong robot. It's impossible. Well, no, it's not impossible. I would have to then move the muscles for the hands. Instead of having a lot in the forearms, I'd have to move it to the bicep area, and then all the motors that were for the bicep, tricep, wrists, and some of the fingers would have to then move into the chest or something. I may even have to put motors inside the breast for actuating the shoulders and bicep, tricep, etc. stuff, and the rotator cuff and whatever. So the breast would be a possible place for motors at that point, but then that would take away the option of using them as coolant reservoirs. So there's pros and cons and a rippling cascade effect of design repercussions if you were to have skinny arms. And I don't see the need for it. I don't think women should necessarily have skinny arms. There are definitely very attractive women with muscular arms. So I wouldn't say if I saw a woman that was very pretty with muscular arms, oh, she looks nasty, she has too big of muscles in her arms. I don't think that's fair. So I wouldn't say that. So I think a woman could still be pretty with muscular arms, so I'm going to go with that. So this will most likely be the third robot I build.